So as you may be aware, recently I've been conducting an experiment with low-budget gaming to see if I could go back to making one episode per week like I used to do when the show first started, and thus cut down on the time needed to produce a full season of 12 or 13 episodes. And as far as the experiment itself goes, I'd say it's been a success. This episode and the two before it were each played, noted, recorded, scripted, and edited, not necessarily in that order, but you get the idea, in 1 week, and with minimal difficulty and delay. However, the two previous reviews were both highly negative, and I'd like to at least try to end the experiment on a high note, and I think we've got a chance with this game, Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Now, this is not to be confused with the game I reviewed earlier called Star Trek Starfleet Command, although, quite frankly, I wouldn't blame you if you did. Similar sounding names aside, they were both released within 3 years of each other, they're both published by Interplay, and they're both space sims. But I have fond memories of putting way too many hours in this game as a kid. Heck, I even still have the original CDs, all 5 of them. So let's see if I feel the same way after all this time, now that I'm a more refined and intelligent... Yeah, I didn't believe that one either. Show the info. As our story opens, we see 2 corporate logos being beamed into space. Clearly part of some nefarious plot by the Klingons. But we've got opening credits to deal with now. Lots of people are in this game. William Shatner, George Takei, Walter Koenig, even Brett's in the game. Brett who, you might ask? Dunno who. I don't even care if I'm pronouncing the guy's name right. I'm just having fun. I'm making myself laugh. That's all I care about. Oh, and I should warn you, it gets worse. But never mind that. Class is in session as we see dozens of hopeful cadets listening to a commencement speech.
We put out the call once again and challenge you to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Ah, you said the thing! This is Commandant A.X. Rothero, and while I'm familiar enough with Star Trek to know that even some of the humans in the 23rd century had weird names, I still can't help but wonder if his name was actually supposed to be Alex, but there was a typo in the script and they just went with it. Especially since he actually is called Alex in the SNES version of the game. Anyway, Commandant What's-His-Face's speech is certainly interesting, but you get the feeling he's stalling for time. Turns out he's waiting on the arrival of some Japanese dude and some weird fat dude. Relax, Trekkies, I know who they are. But the more important question is, do you know who they are? Because I can tell you one thing. Brett don't know who. I regret nothing! Here in the Academy's bridge simulator, we get to meet the crew of cadets we'll be concerned with. We've got Jana Acton at the helm, Jeff Corin manning the weapons, Vanda McGee at communications, engineer Robin Brady, and science officer Sturek, and in charge of them all is our main character, David Forrester. So you've got pretend command, pretend helm, pretend weapons, pretend communication, pretend engineering, and pretend science covered, but no pretend medical officers? Is this what McCoy uttered all those "I'm a doctor, not a whatever" lines for? Did he proclaim who knows how many hundreds of thousands of creatures to be dead Jim for nothing? If you've got no pretend medical officers, who's going to pretend heal the pretend crew when they run the pretend scenario when pretend Kirk here bangs the pretend Orion slave girl? Who, I ask you? Because we all know Brett don't know who. Probably the most unexpected aspect about Starfleet Academy's story is the fact that I'm even talking about it in the first place. With the game being a space sim, you might think that after the opening cutscene, that would be it. We just get on with playing the missions, but no. The game has a story, and it's surprisingly in-depth. One of the subplots deals with a xenophobic terrorist group within the Academy called the Vanguard, who feel the Organian peace treaty that resulted in a non-aggression pact between the Federation and the Klingons was a mistake. And it's plot elements like that that make the story feel like it would be more at home as an episode of Babylon 5 than one of Star Trek. Though, granted, it's been a while since I've regularly watched any Trek series, so maybe that sort of thing is more common than I remember. Still, it's decently written and acted. Each member of Forrester's crew is likable and believable, and the presence of the original series alumni was well balanced in terms of screen time compared to that of the cadets, and felt like more than just fan service for the sake of it. Each of them had a good reason to be there and had a contribution to make. Sulu was there to take charge of the Academy, Chekhov wanted to test out some simulations he came up with, and while Kirk didn't have any real reason to be there other than he's Kirk and thus his presence felt a bit more forced than that of the other two, the simple fact that he's Kirk would, as it turns out, still work well for the story, as because of his reputation for bending the rules to his whim, the Vanguard idolized him and wanted to overthrow the Federation's current government in favor of Kirk, with the hopes that he would lead the Vanguard in a major kicking of the Klingons' collective asses. A couple of things bring the story down, though. I'll try not to spoil too much, but for one thing, the main antagonist, a cadet who seems to be the main representative for the Vanguard, if not the outright leader, is, how should I put this, an imbecile, who was way too easily fooled by things he should have been too smart for, mainly due to his idolization of Kirk, which brings me to point 2. I feel like Kirk maybe took a bit too much of the spotlight in the final confrontation, and it's the one instance in the game where Forrester, the actual main character, felt more like a bit player. And the story cutscenes are also part of the gameplay, as the main plot of the game is Forrester's attempts to work through his crew's shortcomings and problems, and bring them together as one cohesive team. To that end, at various points during a scene, the action will pause, and you'll have to choose a response to what's being said or done. Make the wrong choice too often, and it'll have a negative effect on your crew's overall grade, and if that gets too low, you won't graduate. And of course, to get to the story scenes, you have to play through the simulator missions, which can be problematic, mainly just due to the sheer difficulty of some of those missions. But we'll get to that in a bit. For now, let's take a look at the controls for the sim sections. This may take a while. Actually, while the control list looks daunting at first glance, you'd be surprised at how easy Starfleet Academy is to learn, and even if you do have problems, the keys are rebindable. By default, ship movement is handled by the numeric keypad, which I was not expecting to feel anywhere near as natural as it did. 4 and 6 turn you left and right, 1 and 3 roll you in those directions, and 8 and 2 pitch your ship up and down. Meanwhile, you increase and decrease your speed with 7 and 9 respectively, and come to a full stop with 5. Although when it comes to speed control, I prefer using the horizontal number keys, as each one sets your ship to a specific speed. Pressing a number while holding shift will reverse your ship, and tilde brings you to a stop. When you first start out, your view will be from within the bridge, with the view screen providing a glimpse of the action outside. From here, you have access to the ship's various stations, damage control, navigation, engineering, etc., from which you can perform needed functions like energy allocation, repairing damage, and more. All of which is handy, no doubt, but in the heat of battle, does take a bit of time while you're meanwhile getting your ass shut off. Thankfully, there are quicker ways to skin a cat. First, you'll want to click on the view screen to get a full screen view of the environment outside. Not only will you get a better view of what's going on, but you'll also have a detailed display of any ship you target, which you can get in the bridge view, but you have to cycle to it, whereas in the full screen view it's constant. As far as the bridge stations go, you can quickly access them by pressing the B key, followed by the number corresponding to your desired station. In fact, just about anything you can do in those bridge stations, you can do directly on the full screen view with a hotkey, but I won't be going into all that for the sake of time. Instead, I'll try to keep to the very basics with what you'll be likely to use most often. Navigating to different star systems is easy enough. If you have to go to a particular system as a part of a mission objective, your nav officer will automatically plot the course. All you have to do is go to warp by pressing Shift and W. You can hail other ships by pressing the H key and again pressing the number for who you're hailing. Your alert status can be changed by pressing the A key, followed by G for condition green, when everything's all hunky-dory out there in the final frontier, Y for yellow alert, which will raise your shields, and R for red alert, which raises your shields and powers your weapons. And that leads us nicely into combat. After going into red alert, you'll want to target an enemy, which you can do in one of a few ways, mainly via the numeric keypad again. The slash and asterisk keys cycle through all available targets in the area, while the 0 and period keys cycle through all the ships. I personally find it easier just to use the plus key, which simply targets the nearest enemy ship. With an enemy in your sights, you'll see a box around it, which changes color depending on how close it gets to you. All you need to worry about is when it's red, as that means it's within firing range, with a plain red box indicating the ship is within range of your phasers, fired with the Alt key, and a red box with crosshairs meaning you're in photon torpedo range, fired with control. And sure, you can just plug away with phasers and photons until one of you dies, but there's more to the combat than just that. For instance, there may be times when you'll need to simply disable a ship rather than outright destroy it, for which you'll need to press F to switch your phasers to disabling mode, while being careful to remember that photons have no such mode. Also, if there's a specific part of a ship you want to aim for, say, for instance, taking out the cloaking device on a Klingon ship, you can do so by pressing the V key to bring up sub-targets. I mentioned hailing earlier, and when you do so, much like the story sections, you'll be presented with different conversation options. And again, your overall grade will be affected by what you choose. This is assuming, of course, you even get a hold of someone, as ships will most likely ignore your attempts to contact them at first, especially hostile ships. And again, there may be other things you're required to do as well over the course of a mission, such as using a tractor beam, scanning an object, etc. But what I've just described really covers the gist of the simulator sections. Sounds simple enough, right? Especially if you're like me and you played on easy mode, and indeed the first 2 missions were cakewalks. So what the hell is with the sudden difficulty spike afterwards?
It all goes downhill starting in Mission 3, the first one in which you face Klingons who, again, have cloaking devices, and boy do they love to spam the hell out of them.
You know, the Klingons go on and on about being obsessed with honor, but personally, I see nothing honorable about freaking guerrilla tactics. Come out and face me like a man, damn it!
The fact that they constantly fade in and out of view is annoying enough on its own, but each time they cloak, you lose your weapon lock on them, meaning you have to manually retarget them each time they decloak, assuming you can get your ship turned around to face them in time, as they tend to decloak behind you, and those ships of theirs move quick to boot.
Now, the first few times I played this mission, my butt was kicked handily, but this was with me still using the same strategy I employed as a kid, namely going to Red Alert, doing nothing else, and hoping for the best. But after looking at walkthroughs and seeing that there was, as I described earlier, more to the combat than simply pointing and shooting, I adjusted my strategy, and while the subsequent missions were still difficult, in fact, still more difficult than I would have expected on easy mode, I got through them. Until Mission 7.
Mission 7 is the third in a series of scenarios involving a race called the Venturi. I won't bore you with the details of the backstory we're given for them, but suffice to say, they are tough. The scenario starts with a sudden attack on the starbase where you begin by 3 Venturi ships. You've barely got time to go to Red Alert and divert power to where you need it before they show up. Even with the starbase helping you, extra power sent to your shields and weapons, and, I don't think I can stress this enough, playing on easy mode, you're still lucky if these ships don't snap you in half within seconds. Assuming you survive this first part, your next objective is to warp to a system where the leader of the Venturi attacks, one Alshaf by name, is hiding. Once you've arrived and speak with Alshaf himself, he sends 2 ships after you, and again, even if you took the time to wait for your ship to repair itself back to full health after the first attack, it's nothing short of a miracle if you survive these 2 ships. With them out of the way, it's time to deal with Alshaf himself. You see 4 Venturi medium cruisers, each one identified on your target display as Alshaf's medium. However, this is merely an illusion, Alshaf having previously displayed powerful psychic abilities. Only one of these ships is real and will attack you, and that's obviously the one you want to focus on. Kill Alshaf, and the mission is complete, and you can go back home.
Do you want to know how many tries it took me to complete this mission? So do I, because I've lost count, and I still haven't beaten it. People, I tried every variation I could think of on what the walkthrough suggested to do for this mission. I tried strictly doing exactly what the walkthrough said to do. I tried putting more power into the phasers. I tried more power into the photons. I tried more power into the shields. I even tried sacrificing power from other systems, just something to give me some kind of edge over these bastards. I even tried looking for cheat codes. I found some. They don't work. But I knew I'd done it before. I don't remember if I beat the game per se, but I knew back when I played this as a kid, I distinctly remember getting to other missions past this one. In fact, I think I actually got to the end of the game. So I knew if I could do it then, I could do it now. So I kept trying. And sure enough, after sticking to my guns for who knows how many tries, after so much pain and perseverance, at long last, I still got my ass handed to me. And the more I think about it, the more I have to believe that the extreme difficulty has got something to do with running the game on a modern system, and that's somehow or other bumping up the enemy AI. I mean, that's the only other explanation I can think of. I mean, seriously, let's think about this for a second. Here I am, this past week, focusing on all the ins and outs of combat strategy, damage control, power regulation, all while, must I say it again, playing on easy mode, and I'm getting my ass handed to me constantly. Meanwhile, when I played it as a kid, I was a kid. Relatively speaking, I was an idiot compared to who I am today. Shut up. I wouldn't have paid attention to any sort of details like that. I would have just gone in with guns blazing. And again, it worked. I know for damn sure I got to other missions. And so, as much as I desperately wanted to see more of the story, I also knew at some point I was going to have to start writing this review, and thus, I was forced to admit defeat. It's a shame, really. I was really looking forward to playing this game again, and indeed, despite the difficulty of the preceding missions, I was enjoying the hell out of it. And so, to bring this review, and thus the entire experiment, to a close, I'll say this. Assuming that you can somehow work your way past that needlessly balls-hard mission, Star Trek Starfleet Academy is a very worthwhile entry to the Trek franchise, and I think it would be enjoyable to Trekkies everywhere, whoever they may be.
Because we all know Brett don't know who...